knowing what you are looking for, but also talking about like what benefits the candidate.
We got to be real with people, right? Like, look, this job's hard and this job's rewarding. Here's the reasons why it's hard. Here's the reasons why it's rewarding.
Or you fall and you can't get up. In that case, let me know and I'll call 911. Please let me know which one it is because I'm starting to get worried.
All right, we are here for an episode of Shotcast. I welcome Jarrell Brown and Malak Ramal. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, happy to be here.
I pronounced that right, Jarrell.
Yes, you got it perfect.
Yes, awesome. So just to give you guys a little idea of who we're with today, Malak has been in staffing and recruiting for 6 years. Jarrell Brown has been in recruiting for 7 years. They're top recruiters. They've worked for big companies, still working for big companies today. And I brought them in today because I do a lot of consulting for companies, and some of the things I'm running into with my clients are, number one, bringing people in the door, especially for like brokerages and mortgage companies. It's a little tougher right now, but even for other companies, it's tougher, bringing people in the door. Then when they bring them in the door, keeping them in the door, right? Making sure that they stay till the end of the process. You invest all this money into recruiting and shaping them and getting them inclined to the culture, and then they're gone before the first day or the first month or however that works. And then number three is by bringing in the right people, right? Not wasting time with the wrong people. Like, I have a lot of different ways that I view interviewing. I think there's some people that still do it the old fashioned way, I call it, right? So we want to talk about those three topics. Why don't we start off with Malak? Ladies go first. Happy International Women's Day. Why don't you tell us the most important parts of an interview process in your eyes? If you had a company and you were training somebody on interviewing, what would be like the three top things for you?
Right. Three top things is really knowing exactly what you're looking for in a candidate. So when you're interviewing someone, I feel like you should make them feel comfortable so you can get them to actually, bring out the best side of them, not just, getting them nervous or anything like that. Also, like being confident in what you're currently recruiting for. So like knowing what you are looking for, but also talking about like what benefits that candidate. So like knowing what they're looking for long term, and asking the right questions to the candidate too. So it's like, what are you currently lacking at your current position that you're not gaining at, or that you want to gain in a new company that will make that candidate stay long term with you? So really digging deep in the interview questions and getting to know the candidate a little more, so you can see if they will last with you long term. I feel like are some.
So I heard four things there: making sure it's a comfortable environment, making sure you're confident, making sure you know exactly what you're looking for in the candidate while you're interviewing them, and then let them know the benefits while you're talking to them as well at the same time. How about you, Jarrell?
Yeah, so mine would be kind of similar, but I'd say like my biggest thing is you don't want to feel like an interview. The way I like to interview, and some of the best interviewers I've sat with or learned from, make it more of a conversation. So it's not, I'm going to sit here and pep you with all these questions. You don't want to interrogate anybody, but if you have a conversation, so then you're human, you kind of make that connection. So I think it's the same thing. Like, you have to get to know them as a person, which is having a conversation interview helps you do that. I think my second thing would be setting the realistic expectations, right? So not over promising folks. Like, hey, like, you don't want to oversell the job, and then when someone gets there and it's not what you promised them, then they're out of the door quick, right? So you want to be very like set proper expectations, make sure that's clear.
Yeah.
And I'd say my third thing is just being knowledgeable, right? So being knowledgeable about the company, and I think one of the best things to do is to be able to brand your company, right? So why would I want to work here? I always tell them, the candidates I'm working with or I'm setting up for interviews, is just as much the leader's interview as it is your interview, right? So it's a back and forth. So as we're interviewing them, they're interviewing us as well. So
I like that outlook on it, because then it makes it like a team effort instead of just you interviewing them. You want to get into my company, here's what you have to do. It's more like we got to make an impression on them as well. And this goes two-sided. Just listening to both of you give those different perspectives, I'm starting to realize that a recruiter is sort of like a salesperson. If not, they might be a salesperson, because in sales, I hear two different approaches, and I just heard that right now. I heard one approach that's very like process oriented, right? Comfortable, confident, knowing what they want, benefiting the company. Then I heard your approach, which started off opposite, it's just like have a conversation, be human. And sometimes I tell salespeople the best way to make a sale is to have a conversation, be human, talk to someone like you're talking to them at the bar. That's how you really get to know them. So I thought that was interesting. One thing that I really like that you said is realistic expectations. I talked about three things that are going on in the market right now where people are having trouble bringing them in, having trouble keeping them, or having trouble bringing the right people. And I think the first and the second part, the first part, not so much, maybe just the second part is keeping people there. I think the expectations is what drives people out. Like, yeah, you're going to make so much money. It's going to be great. And like, you only say
yeah.
all these great, that's like being in a relationship, going on a first date and, you know, telling her, yeah, everything's great. I've never had a bad relationship. I've never had any problems. I'm well raised, never been on probation. And then the next day she gets a call from my PO. Where's Alex at?
100%. Yeah.
You know? So I think it's very similar in that sense that we got to be real with people, right? Like, look, this job's hard and this job's rewarding. Here's the reasons why it's hard. Here's the reasons why it's rewarding. We go through both sides of it. And we make sure, which ties into what Malak was saying, that they know what we're looking for and what they're getting into, right? So I 100% agree with that, that there is different styles of recruiters, right? What would you say? Like, I know you said you pay attention to people and recruiting, some of the best. Who are some of the best to you?
Best recruiters or?
Yeah, you said that you watch the best recruiters. Like, who do you look up to when it comes to recruiting?
I would say the leader I worked with named Dan Agoy. So he's now the CEO of an organization, but a lot of things I learned in recruiting have been from him. And it's just very conversational. He's the type of person that just you feel so comfortable with him. You just want to like have that conversation. So it's not a lull. You can tell he cares about you. You know, it's a very easy and smooth flowing conversation. So.
So you got to make sure the person interviewing is somebody that gives that comfortable atmosphere.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody that could give a good conversation, not somebody that can make things awkward or a little nerve-wracking. I like that. I believe before we get into these three steps and what best works for these processes, I believe that the old-fashioned interview, I made a video about this saying that like the days of going through a resume and calling previous employers should be buried and gone. Do you guys agree with that?
100%.
In some
I like
sort, yes.
Yeah. So just to give you some context and why I say that, of course, for some fields, I understand there's one-offs that you need to have experience. You need to have a PhD, whatever that is. I get that. But I'm saying for jobs that you have people in your organization that don't have prior experience and they're successful, it shouldn't rely on the resume or the experience. That could be something that I look at just to get an idea of who I'm talking with, but it shouldn't steer me or lead me in my interview. I don't even ask questions about it in my interview most of the time. What I found to be the most important tactic, and I know that there's legalities behind this as well, is, you know, the sell me the water play, right? I think the best way to figure out, and this is to figure out what Malak was saying, if you have somebody that's meets your requirements, is show me those requirements. To give you guys an example, there's a website called Upwork. Have you guys ever heard of it?
No.
I am not.
Okay, so I was looking for a high-level social media manager because, you know, social media these days is like 10 different social medias. I'm like, man, I'm spending like 2 hours just to post every single day. I'm like, I'm not doing this. It's not worth my time. And I'm not good at it either. And I'm a smart leader. I could realize when I'm not good at something, I'd like to delegate it to someone that is. So Upwork is for freelancers that do professional jobs and they charge you per project, right? So I sent out a thing saying, you know, I'll pay people up to $20 to $30 an hour to be my social media manager. Here's what I'm looking for. Here's my pages. Check them out and send me a proposal of why you'll be the right fit. I got 18, 19 proposals. Now that's like layer one. I took it a layer deeper. And then inside of those interviews that I did, because I did a 15-minute interview with each person, I gave them a task, right? Now it was recorded and I've got their permission. So I'm not sure if there's legalities behind giving somebody a free task, but if they agree, I'm sure it's fine, right? And I told them, show me what you would change. So I told one person, tell me what you would change. And I told two other people that to see who had the best changes to my pages. And then I told somebody else, tell me what kind of videos I should post. And I told three people that. And then I gathered all these answers and I figured out who had the best answers for me and who had a real plan and who went in depth and actually watched my stuff. And there was an obvious choice of somebody that went real deep, deeper than everybody else, really wanted my business, and they gained it. And I think that's special in recruiting, is having somebody, testing them on a small basis of like, look, if you want to do this, show me how you do it. Even if you've never done sales before, like show me how you'd sell this water, and then I'll give you feedback and show me back. And I know with like our recruiting, because I've been through it before, we do a lot of things like that as far as like similar things to what's going to be going on in the day-to-day workforce. We show you how that works and we give you activities to put you in how that works. So how would you guys say your interviewing is weighed based off of like looking on a resume compared to actually live action of seeing what they could do now?
So looking at a resume, I do it just to see like the longevity of where the person or how long the person has been with the company. Not so much of like what they have done in the past or anything like that, especially like in an entry-level sales type of role. Not looking too much of like how many years in sales they have or anything like that. But yeah, to your point, it's more of like focusing on if the candidate is more of like coachable, their curiosity, if they're a good listener, if they're competitive, especially in a sales type of position. So yes, we do a lot of shadowing, so they can really get to see what their day-to-day would look like as, like, for example, a banker, to see if they're actually, if they want to do that long term, if they're willing to put in the hours and the hard work to be a banker. So yeah, that's the type of like, shadowing we do to that.
I like that because that tells like longevity. Like, have they
Mhm.
been bouncing around? That's one thing that I probably would look at now that you say
Yeah.
that. I would see, do they bounce around or are they loyal and comfortable at one place? How about you,
Yeah,
Terrell?
yeah, I would agree with Malak too. So it's really just longevity and then like just see what industries they've been in. So I think resumes are good too to like notice trends, like where they're in sales one day, then they switch to customer service. So I think resumes tell a story, which that's what I use it for and look at it. But especially when you're doing like entry level recruiting, you're not, like you said, you're not doing something so specialized where you have to have a specific degree, specific experience. Really, it's more so like when I'm interviewing, it's like the resume is good to have to see like what you've done. And I have like your work history here. But really, what I'm looking for when I'm recruiting is I'm looking for behaviors. So kind of like Malak said, like, are you a strong communicator, right? If you're gonna be in sales, you have to be able to communicate at a high level. Are you a high level communicator? Do you think quick on your feet? Are you coachable? How do you handle rejection? How do you handle when tough situations arise? I'm more so looking for behaviors. You can't find behaviors from a resume. You have to find that through conversation. So it's more of a behavioral based interview.
Yeah. What are some tactics you have to figure out somebody's behavior?
Yeah, it's just framing a question. So if I wanted to know, like, if you persevered and ask you, hey, like, Malak, tell me about a time that something didn't go as planned, right? So I'm looking like, set it up. I'm looking for behavior. If something doesn't go how you think it's going to go, what are you going to do?
Got it. Could we run that activity right now with me?
Yep.
All right. Ask me one of your questions.
Yep. Acez, tell me about a time that you got feedback that you didn't necessarily understand or agree with, and how did you handle that?
Yeah. One time I was actually applying for a promotion as in a leadership role. And I got feedback that I didn't put enough effort into the application.
Okay. Is that feedback you agree with?
Yes, I agreed with it. Now, again, side note, you're talking to me when I've grown, so there'll probably be different answers before, but I agreed with it because the people that gave me the feedback I look up to as mentors, and I'm not naive. So I took that feedback and I spent another 2 months creating a presentation that was with too much detail for them the next time.
Gotcha. So you said too much detail the next time. So when you represented it, what was the result of you going back and representing it to the team?
The result was good. It was like halfway through, like, we get it. Like, you took the feedback.
Gotcha.
So what would that tell you about me if I was interviewing?
So I think it tells me that, I normally would like a little bit more of like what was the feedback. Sometimes I dig a little bit deeper if I'm not getting enough, but it tells me that you're coachable. It wasn't
Yeah.
like, hey, like they told me it wasn't enough, and then like they don't know what they're talking about, right? But you came
Yeah.
like, hey, I look at them as mentors. I'm open to that coaching from someone that's above me that I look at as a mentor. So it shows me that you are coachable.
Got it. Let's say you have a candidate that has the best resume you've seen, the best experience you've seen, but they completely bombed the in-person interview. Does the resume and their experience outweigh the personal experience in the interview?
I think it just depends on like what, like how did they bomb the interview? Like, was it more of just like answering the questions or?
Let's just say that you'd give them like a 3 out of 10 on the interview in person.
I think I would do a second interview.
Second interview. Okay,
Yeah.
that's a good tip.
Mhm.
All right. Now let's say we had Jarrell, one person that had a horrible resume,
Mhm.
bounces around a lot, but they completely wowed you in the live interview. Would that outweigh their experience in their past?
I think it depends on. I think it depends on the role, and at the end of the day, it's like, hey, like, are you willing to take that risk? If you are, and you feel good, and like, hey, like, I can sign off on this person because of X, Y, and Z. Like, there's reasons that you're signing off on the person. I'm good with it, right? But you have to, as a hiring leader, as interviewers, we have to decide ourselves, like, hey, is this worth the risk to move this person forward? I will tell you, I've hired someone before, great, great, great salesperson. There was actually a senior leader listening to the phone call when I was interviewing them. And same thing, like this person was hopping from job. Literally in a year, they probably had about like 5 or 6 jobs in one year. But they were so good on the phone, such a great communicator. We still gave them a shot, and we did hire that person because it did outweigh the basically what the senior leader told me is like, hey, I go get a beer with this person. Like, heck yeah, I'd buy a mortgage. I go get a beer with them. So
Yeah.
it really depends on what the role is. Now, if it was something like more specialized, like a doctor or something like that, probably not. But if it's entry level, you have to assume if you want to like take that risk.
Yeah. That's when you're looking for extroverts, but sometimes there's roles that require introverts. And maybe you say, I won't
Mhm.
have a beer with them, but
Yeah.
they could do this job pretty well.
Yeah.
Right. So I think like one good thing to probably do is have people with different personalities running the interview process, first, second, and third interview. If you're iffy about somebody, that way you could get 3 different perspectives on them and then make a choice. Do you guys go through a team of people to vote on it, or is it just one person?
It's usually 2 interviews. So the first interview is going to be with a recruiter, and then the second interview, it's either with a director and the VP.
Got it.
It's usually, yep.
2 interviews. And what happens if one person disagrees?
Then we talk about the reasons why we're not moving forward and the reasons why we should. And if we're just not meeting, eye to eye, then we'll do a third one.
Got it. And have we ever had somebody that didn't get the interview, they're declined, and then they did such a good job at following up with passion and relentlessness that we brought them back in?
We've had
Not in
that
my
before.
experience.
Yeah.
Not in your experience?
Yeah, I'm sure it's happened, but it hasn't happened with me, but I'm sure it's happened before.
Got it. So, I mean, when it comes to like networking and like social media, I feel like everybody does the same things when interviewing, right? There's the websites that you hear of that everybody uses, the 1, 2, 3 websites, right? There's social media. Um, Not a lot of people do networking events, but I know networking events work. Like, what would you say like is a bread and butter? If you want to bring people into your organization, what do you need to be doing right now to get more applicants inside the door? Like, what's the main things? Let's say you don't have a big brand too. Let's say, you're not as well known as some of the companies you guys work for.
I
So,
would go ahead.
oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I found success in recruiting differently by building on my personal brand. So like I've always like to give the candidate like the best experience, even though they're not a match. And with that, I built like a referral pipeline. So like even if they're not a match and I decline that candidate, they send me referrals of the team members that are a match, or like the candidates that are a match. So really I focus on when I decline the candidate, I focus on giving them coaching or feedback on like what to work on and then come back and revisit the conversation, but also building my social media presence and like getting the word out there that I'm currently hiring. So like either posting on like Instagram or like LinkedIn that, you know, we're hiring, getting the word out there outside of just like either focusing on like just getting the applicants or the referral pipeline that I've built. So that's what I've been doing and it's been working.
Yeah. I'd
I
say
love the fact
too.
that you're getting referrals. That's
Oh yeah.
that's definitely strong. That if you can't hire them, I call it squeezing the juice out of the lemon. I have it
Oh
on a
yeah.
sweater that I sell. It's a lemon getting squeezed. It's one of my gears. And that's what you're doing. You know, you make it a good experience, so it leads some more, and you get some referrals from that. I absolutely love that. And the personal brand's very important. Social media is important too. But I feel like there's more, right? I'm a little crazy when it comes to this stuff because I want to be the one that's unique. You know, I do all the crazy stuff that no one else is willing to do. What do you think, Jarrell?
I like using, so same thing. I like using social media. I can't tell you the last time I've been to an actual career fair. So I think using social media referrals is big. It's very cost effective. If you're talking to somebody, especially if you have a great person, great people know great people, just asking for a referral. One thing that I find a lot of success in is sending very like crafty messages. Like when I'm reaching out to someone on, let's say, like I use LinkedIn Recruiter a lot to message candidates. I send like messages that people want to read. Some are funny, some have jokes in them, but it kind of makes it light of like, hey, like this guy's not a stuffy corporate professional. Like he actually has a personality, right? So
What's one of your favorite messages that you send out?
I will pull it up and read it to you.
All right. Because I get a lot of long messages on LinkedIn that I talk shit about.
Oh yeah, you got to keep it short. I'll pull it up here. 1 second. I want to lag my, you wouldn't jump in and say anything when I'm looking for this message. Anything else you want to add?
I mean, I run the same play, just messaging people on LinkedIn and not stopping until you get a response back.
I think there's an opportunity while you're looking for that message. There's an
Oh yeah.
opportunity in networking, right? I always say if you want to find the fish, swim in the ocean.
Oh yeah.
All right. Meaning like if you're looking for a realtor, go to a realtor convention. If you're looking for a broker, go to a broker convention. A lot of the majority of my academy is brokers that work with TPO. Okay. Because they could only work with TPO because I'm RKT for life. You guys know this.
Oh yeah.
But I'll tell you that I might get a booth in the Las Vegas convention this year. I might, you know, hit up Mike and come help him out setting up his booth and have a booth for myself because why wouldn't I meet 20,000 brokers if that's the majority of who I train? And I know me face to face with people shaking hands, getting business cards is going to be more valuable than me on social media, sending them a message or putting an advertisement out or anything like that.
Oh
So
yeah.
I think a lot of people are not leveraging networking these days when networking has always been the best advice and the best way to recruit somebody or get a sale is be face to face and be where they all lie. You know, if I want to hire a chef, then I'm going to go to a chef convention, you know?
Yeah, it makes sense. I got the message here. So it reads, this is normally if I haven't gotten that, like my first 2 messages didn't work. This one always gets a response. I'd say like 99% of the times it reads, hi candidate, I haven't heard back from you. That tells me one of a few things. 1, you're not interested in speaking with me more about the role. If that's the case, please let me know so I can stop bothering you. 2, you're interested, but you haven't had the time to get back to me yet. 3, you're binging the latest Netflix series and you can't break away until you finish it. Or 4, you fall and you can't get up. In that case, let me know and I'll call 911. So then I just cap it off. Please let me know which one it is because I'm starting to get worried.
And what's your most popular response?
I usually get, I'll just read you the response here that I got back. It says, first of all, that is hysterical. Secondly, I love the chat.
Like it. I like it. I like that because it makes you want to answer because it wants to give you an answer. That's a very clever one. I respect it. We'll give you one of these. Did you hear that or no?
A little low.
A little off? Well, it's a cheers maggot. So, okay. So social media, personal brand, referrals, anything else that companies listening could do right now to recruit better?
I think going back to like referrals is building a referral program for team members that are referring candidates over to either recruiters or hiring managers. So like, for example, something that we do is we provide either like any type of incentive really to the team member that is referring someone over. Because again, as Darrell said, good salespeople know other good salespeople. So they want to bring in their friends, but rewarding them for the team members that they're bringing on. It's like, for
Got it.
example, like giving them maybe like a bonus for every person that they
Oh, so you say
refer over.
existing team members refer other
Yeah,
people.
yeah,
Got it.
yep.
Okay, so it's good stuff. We got personal branding. We got referrals from the people that don't make a match or do make a match. We got referrals from people inside your organization. We got being clever and using social media. I'd say that's a pretty good 5 to start with. I added networking on there. Go to the ocean where your fish are, wherever your fish may be. And lastly, I'd say be creative with social media, right? That's the next step of social media. It's not just social media and posting, I need somebody. It's like show a story of somebody in tears that you've changed your life and you recruited them where they shouldn't have been recruited. Show those stories. Show the people, right? Show what people care about. Show something funny like that thing you just said right there. Like when you don't answer a recruiter, there's one of 3 reasons why. And this is a TikTok. And you say, number 1, you're either on your couch on Netflix. Number 2, you fell down, you need help. Number 3, let me know what answer it is. And if you're looking for a job with 6 figures, hit the DM. Like something like that would be catchy, and using those kind of messages. So I think being creative on social media as well could help people with finding people because everyone's recruiting the same way. How could you be a little creative, right? Open house, have people come watch for a day, have videos of your culture inside the place. Like, how are you branding the business? How are you branding yourself? Getting referrals, team member referrals, and then focusing on your brand and your personal brand. So I like all of that. The number 2 thing I wanted to address is when you get people to start the interview process and they disappear, why is that? How do we keep them in the interview process? What are your main tips for having a smooth process and keeping people engaged and inclined through the process?
Yeah, I think it's upfront. I think one of the biggest things is setting proper expectations from the onset. So normally when I'm engaging in an interview, I'll tell you exactly how long the process is going to take. So you kind of know what timeline we're looking at. I also never assume. So I always ask like, hey, where else are you interviewing? Right. I need to be in I need to be in the room. I need to know what conversations are being had when I'm not there. Right. So I think it was one of the biggest things I learned in recruiting. Like I had one of my best months. The next month, it wasn't great. That folks, I was like, hey, I found a new opportunity. And the one question I wasn't asking is like, hey, who else are you talking to? Where else are you interviewing? Where do we rank in the past interviews you've done? So it's all about gathering more and more information because that's what I find. Typically, when folks disengage, it's because they found something better. But we don't know if they're on the verge of finding something better or what else is out there. We don't ask that question. We just assume like, hey, I got this candidate here. This is the best option for them. We can't make that assumption.
Yeah. You know what I found to be good when like clients and sales find something better? I do the 8 Mile play. You ever hear of the 8 Mile, the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, where B Rabbit makes fun of himself for 3 minutes on the microphone and throws it. I call it the 8 Mile play, squashing moles, getting rid of knots in the back. Like if you know that might be a flaw, I would address it before they address it or it happens. So I'd say like, look, you might be looking at other places. Let me tell you what's going on with other places. Let me tell you why we're better. So if I could just add that into the interview to let them know like, hey, there's other people, there's other places that you're probably looking at. Here's why you should be here. And you should add that into your script. So that way, next time somebody else calls them or they look somewhere else, no, Jarrell told me this and this and that. And he told me this and this and that about them. So I'm not going to do that. So I would add that to the scripting, why we're better than them. I always say it's like an obstacle course. Get rid of the booby traps. Any reason why a candidate leaves your process, you got to build a new process to stop that reason. And if you could block all the booby traps, then you'll be in a good place. That's something that I say. I don't know if you guys believe in that or you guys do that probably, but I think just bringing up the objections early on and letting them know what's out there gets rid of them from, going to explore themselves.
Yeah,
What do you
I
think,
agree with
Malak?
that.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And that brings me back to the first point that I did make was focusing more of like what the candidate is looking for and talking about the benefits of what we can offer them as a company. After every interview in the process, I would call the candidate right away and just ask them like, what additional questions do you have? Or like just getting feedback on the interview, like, how do you feel? what did, what went wrong, what any concerns, just like really focusing on like what the candidate wants and then what they're lacking at that current company and talking about again the benefits of like what we have to offer.
Yeah, I love that. So you stay on the communication to make sure that they're good. You make them
Yes.
cozy. You make sure that you know what's on their mind. So high level communication is important to keep somebody in the process. What are the signs that you have a dud or somebody that you're like, oh, they're not going to make it through? What signs do you guys see or look for, if any?
I'd say delayed responses. So this just happened to me the other day. I had a candidate interview with the leader, knew they were interviewing other places, and I shoot a text. Just like Malak, I follow up after every conversation, do a temp check. Hey, how are you feeling? What are concerns, right? And by doing that and having that constant communication, you'll know if that person's not hitting you back right away. If you call them, say, hey, give me a call back. Now always ask for an action back. So they can say, oh, I missed it. Say, call me back, text me back. How does this feel? Is always a question. And if I'm not hearing from that person, if it's, if I call them like 1 o'clock this afternoon and hear back by end of day, I already have like, hey, like I need this person may not make it. They're not getting back to me right away. That's a sign.
Awesome. So if you have somebody that's delayed or ghosting, typically means they're not going to make it through. What about you, Malak?
Very similar to Jarrell, just someone that is, taking too long to answer my texts or just like ignoring my calls after the interview. And someone like if they do answer, they bring up hesitations of like why they feel like it didn't go well. And like just saying, yeah, I need time to think about it. Those are the words that you need to look out for, is someone that says, yeah, let me think about it and I'll get back to you.
Yeah, I like that. So the communication has to be high. They got to be engaging with you throughout the whole process. If not, that's usually a sign that they're not going to last through the process and you should cut them early.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Now, I know we've all had experiences, probably you guys have too, where you meet the salesperson of the salespeople, where they sell you and they give you everything you want to hear. And they're that person. They studied you before they came in and they know your favorite show on Netflix. Cause I've had people do that to me before where they come in and they're like, yeah, I read this, thing you wrote 3 years ago. I'm like, what? 3 years? How the hell did you find that? And it's like they did an extensive search on you to really wow you. And then they churn out to be the complete opposite. They just played. I've met a lot of those people in my life where they play that role of like, man, this person's going to be great. They end up being the worst person you've brought in, or like somebody that doesn't make it through, or somebody that doesn't show up. How do you guys know the signs of those people? That like you're like, man, this sounds too good to be true, but is it? How do I know they're real? Is there like any tests or any line we could draw to figure out, is this thing real or no?
I don't know. I don't know that say that there's a test, but I think it's just like with anything. And if we think about like sales in general, anytime that anyone is too eager for something, for me, that's a red flag. Like, so it's like, oh yeah, I'll start tomorrow. Let's do it. Let's go. I'm ready. If someone's too eager, I'm like, okay, something's not right here. Like
Yeah,
typically, like you said, it's like I compare recruiting and I really compare recruiting and like interviewing to like dating, right? Like you can go on that first date and someone's like, all right, let's get married tomorrow. Like red flags started to pop up. Like something's going on there. Like they're too gung ho to like
yeah,
get going. Like there's some red flags there. So
yeah.
I think that's one of the ways I can tell.
That's funny because I compare sales to dating. So I think sales and recruiting is very similar. I'm starting to
Oh yeah.
learn. Yeah. How about you, Malak?
I feel like when you get those type of candidates, just start asking a lot of questions, digging deep. Like, for example, if someone says they have experience doing, I don't know, like something in software or like something in tech. Okay, so what type of coding do you do or something like that? So just really digging in and asking a bunch of questions to really figure out if they know that type of, system or anything like that.
Yeah. So if it sounds too good to be true or they're too eager, it might be the case, is what you're saying.
Or I've had folks that have just come across like, hey, like I'm the best of the best. Like, oh, I did like especially in like mortgage recruiting, like, oh, like I did 20 million like for 2022. And then I'll ask them, okay, like how many closings was that? How many units was that? And well, it's like, okay, well, you threw this big figure out here, but you can't tell me the finer details. It's just like that 20 million sounds impressive until I start to
Yeah.
like dig a little bit deeper onto like, hey, what goes into that 20 million? And you can't answer those questions.
So being able to source your answers quickly
Oh
and
yeah.
efficiently. I like that. So that brings us to our third point is how do you keep somebody in the process once they start? Because we know the beginning is always the toughest, especially if you're doing a new career. Do you guys do anything or have any processes in place to make sure somebody sticks with us the first 6 months? Or like, do we check up on them? Do we make sure they're still happy? Or does the communication completely die after they're hired?
No, I think some of the best recruiters keep those relationships with their candidates. So I think it's good for a couple of reasons. It helps you. And one thing I like to do too is I'll do like a 1 month check-in with my new hires. I even now do a 1 week check-in with my hires. Like, hey, how was your first week? What were likes? What were dislikes?
I like
How's
that.
everything feeling so far? 1 month check-in, 3 month check-in. You see they get a promotion, check-in there. Wow, look at you. You just give them everyone likes an ego stroke, right? So I think that's one good to show that you care. You're not just about putting butts in seats and hitting numbers. Two, it gives you the opportunity to ask referrals, right? If I bring you on board, you're loving what you're doing. Hey, Malak, I know you've been here for 3 months now. You're loving it. Who else do you know that will love this exact same opportunity? So it helps you build that referral pipeline as well.
Nice. What about you, Malak?
Yeah, very similar. Is just keep checking in with your candidates. I also like to add them on LinkedIn right away. If they have Instagram, add them on Instagram, add them on Facebook. If it's like near a holiday, send out email blast to all your hires within like the last year, like Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays, just keeping that communication going.
Yeah, I think that's important because a lot of times people leave for reasons that could have been resolved very easily,
Mhm.
but they didn't have nobody to talk to. They got scared. They think that things are worse than they really are, and they run away. And I think checking up on them might draw that out of them, but taking it even a step further, like what if you ask them for feedback? How's it going with your leader? How's it going in your role? Is there anything you're struggling with? And then you could take that information and transfer it to the person responsible and be in front of the problems for them. I think that would be even cooler to just be a step ahead of the issues.
Yeah. Or even like, hey, like what things do you wish you would have known coming in that I wasn't able to tell you in our initial conversations?
Oh,
Even
that's a
to
good
level
one.
yourself up,
Yep,
So
that's a good one. Yeah, what things didn't you know that you wish I would have told you earlier? Because then you could figure out what's really on their mind.
yep.
Yeah. Anything else other than keeping up with them and just communicating and figuring out if they have any issues? Is that the only ways to keep people there?
Are we saying like you just keep people in roles? Is
Yeah,
that,
like to try not to lose anybody the first 6 months.
yeah. I think it's all about too, like I'd say it's just as much as like me as a recruiter, like once I get the person in the door, technically like my job is done. But like I said, the best recruiters don't look at it that way. But I think is equally on like the leader. I have unfortunately in my career I've been doing it long enough to where I've had folks come in and they didn't stay very long because the leader that they have been passed off to is like they went too hard from day one. It was like instantly you're walking into the DEFCON 4. Like, even if it's not as bad, like somebody made it seem so bad. I've had a candidate call me. It's like, hey, Jarrell, I don't know why I'm in this role. Like, I just talked to my leader. He said it's gonna be an X, Y, and Z. Like, expectations are set way too hard, and that like scared the living crap out of this person. So it's again, I think it's as much on the leader. Like, get to know your people, show them that you
Do you get a
care.
choice with the leader that they have? Like if you know this person would work well with this leader, or is it just random?
It's just random.
Got it.
Especially in like when you're doing like mortgage screen, you're hiring a high volume of folks. It'd be great to like say like, hey, you're gonna work directly with this person. Which is good. I think like when you have that one-to-one, like, hey, I know you're working exactly with this director. I think that helps a little bit more. But if it's gonna be scattered across, you just don't know. But that's what I think is on to like us to make sure our leaders are like
Yeah,
they're
it comes down
invested
to the
in.
leader because the leader has
Yep.
to know how to analyze and deal with all personalities, right?
Yep. And just show people that you care. If you
But
show
you're
people that you
right.
care,
I think I was talking about this last week on another
Mhm.
podcast with a VP of a credit union, and we were talking about how the biggest reason people leave is because of the leaders. The biggest reason people don't believe is because of the leaders, because there's some leaders that could spoil that image, or have a different approach. Like I would suck at interviewing, man. I'm way too aggressive. I'm way too serious. I don't know how to smile too much. I wouldn't interview. I would have one of you guys interview for me and pay you for it, Like I just wouldn't do that part because I feel like I could scare somebody away with my seriousness, or I could work on it if I really wanted to do that. But at least I realize that. And as a leader, if I'm getting somebody that's soft spoken, I don't go aggressive with them. Like I realize who I have by getting to know them first. That's why the most important part of a leader should be a one-on-one, to 1 hour one-on-one to get to know somebody that comes to your team. Like really get to know them without talking business or experience. And then after that, saying, so I have this type of personality, here's how I should lead them, and start getting an idea. And I think that would help a lot. Maybe we should force leaders and throw that in the cheese it, and
Yeah.
force leaders to actually do 1 hour one-on-one personal and figure out what kind of personality you have coming to you and send us a proposal of how you're going to lead them. Like that could be something cool for leaders to do.
Yeah.
Right. So there's all these kinds of ideas that I think would be beneficial when it comes to the interviewing process and keeping somebody in the organization.
I'd say some of my best leaders is like you said, it's like, hey, like at the end of the day, I know you're my leader, but we're still friends, right? We have that friendship. Like if something like shit hits the fan, I don't feel bad coming to you, and having that conversation because we have that friendship established. So
Yeah. All right. So this show is called Shotcast. Thank you guys for being on it. We end it with a shot of inspiration from each of us. So if you could think just one thing that you want people to take away from this, the most important thing or the thing that's on your mind, the one shot you want to give to everybody listening when it comes to marketing for recruiting, when it comes to a good process for recruiting, and when it comes to keeping people in the door for recruiting, we're all going to call our most important thing. And I'll start us off to give you guys a little time. My shot to everybody listening is to be unique and be relentless, meaning don't do what everybody else is doing. Try to find what nobody else is doing. Be that special person, similar to Jarrell's message he's sending out that seemed pretty unique to me, that was funny and got people to respond. What could you do? Could you show up at a convention and have a booth with popcorn and cotton candy and a magician and become people's friends before the recruiter? Could you be on social media doing a different kind of video? Could you be making a unique video yourself or sharing a story of somebody? What could you do? Could your interview process be filmed or recorded or be different than everybody else? It'd be something to remember. Make yourself unique. That's my shot. We'll take it to Jarrell.
I'm going to say be curious. If you have questions, ask them. Don't assume, especially when you're recruiting. And then I'm also going to say preparation. I think preparation is key. Whether it's, going to find a candidate, doing an interview, doing a one-on-one, a lot of things. I think it comes down to also preparation. So that would be my shot.
Awesome. And Malak?
For me, it's going to be being driven is key. So staying motivated, especially in this type of industry, right now in this type of market as well. So need to be willing to put in the hard work and always be motivated.
Love it. Are your recruiters driven, motivated, curious, unique, relentless, right? Is your process open, comfortable? Are you branding yourself and figuring out if they're right for your role? Are you being unique when you advertise to people? Are you being upfront with them with their expectations? Are you checking up on them as they come to your organization, making sure they're good? Are you communicating with their leaders? Are you making sure that they don't drop? Are you doing everything in your power to interview the right way? Is the question I want to end this off with. Thank you guys so much for being on the show. It's been a pleasure. Welcome
Thanks
to
for
the
having us.
Shotcast. If you guys need a 6-figure job, up to 6 figures, I should say, since we're on a recorded and monitored line here on YouTube, if you want to make up to 6 figures, which I work for their company and I make 6 figures gladly. I've never made less than that. Full benefits, PTO, holidays off, very fun, family-oriented culture. Please hit up Jarrell Brown, Malak Ramal. Look them up on Google. You guys will pop up, right?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Look them up on Google. They'll pop up. Send me a message. Leave me a comment. They'll respond to it. They got some good jobs waiting for you on the other side of the door. Thank you so much for tuning into Shotcast.